I call the member for Fraser.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, too many Australians live in circumstances of entrenched disadvantage. Too many Australian children are in households where their parents and sometimes their grandparents haven't known regular employment, haven't known the dignity of work and the social inclusion that comes from being part of the labour market. It is a concern to see children growing up in households where the example of work isn't there in the morning when the alarm goes off and a parent leaves for work or study. And it is important that we ensure the benefits of work are available to as many Australians as possible. I left high school as Australian unemployment was beginning to spike in 1990, and am acutely aware of what it is like to be a young person in a labour market where it's difficult to get a job. Unemployment then spiked at 11%, and that had an impact on school leavers, but it also had an intergenerational impact on those children in households where parents couldn't find work. One of the great achievements of this government has been avoiding a thing that never happened, avoiding the global economic experience of unemployment that has blighted so many developed countries. This bill is a difficult one. It is putting in place incentives for work that will apply equally now to all parenting payment recipients. The changes will encourage parents to participate sooner in the labour market, and our hope with this bill is that it will provide intergenerational benefits for families and children, that more young children will have the opportunity of growing up in a household where people work. This was the great achievement, I think, of social policy under the Clinton administration. Under Bill Clinton, through the move to an earned income tax credit, spearheaded through his campaign slogan, "If you work, you shouldn't be poor," there was a substantial increase in employment rates in low-income communities, among single parents, among African Americans. And the intergenerational impacts of that are, I hope, positive. A book by Jason DePaul and the New York Times writer speaks about the experience of three women going through the Clinton employment reforms of the 1990s. Part of the impact was having a little more money, but part was also the power and the control of moving from welfare into work. And Jason DePaul talks there about the attitudes and behaviours that come from participating in the labour market. One of the benefits for us in Australia is that the bottom end of our labour market is well above the bottom end in the United States. Now with a $16 an hour minimum wage, we have a minimum wage which is above the average wage paid by many large US companies, including, for example, Apple or Costco. A significant proportion of those subject to the provisions of this bill will be single mothers and partnered mothers, and we want their contribution to the workforce. We want them to participate in the economy. We are now, with an unemployment rate of 5%, in a situation in which many sectors of the economy face labour shortages. The ABS Labour Force Survey showed in May that the number of people employed in Australia is now over 11.5 million. And we have a national participation rate of 65%, 59% for women, 72% for men. It is important that we create the right incentives to encourage people to move from welfare to work. And I commend the work of the Treasurer and the Minister for Families. Over the course of more than a decade now, through their advocacy from opposition and into government about reducing the disincentives for work that welfare tapers represented. The unpardonable situation of welfare tapers that exceeded 100%, that meant that when you earned another dollar, you lost more than a dollar in income support. We have now gotten rid of those disincentives. It is vital that we deal with that we increase employment rates, and it is such a contrast to be here in Australia looking at the unemployment situation in other developed countries. The Economist magazine recently noted that if all developed country unemployed people lived in the one nation, it'd have a population about the size of Spain's. For us in Australia, we now have a 5% unemployment rate, and we have only 19% of unemployed Australians as of July last year were long-term unemployed, meaning they'd been unemployed for more than a year. That's in contrast with, if you go back to 2003 or 2004, the long-term unemployed share was 21%. So not only have we brought down the unemployment rate over the course of the last decade, we've also brought down the share of the unemployed who are long-term jobless. We know that the cost of unemployment goes beyond the economic. We know that the loss of dignity that accompanies losing a job can be associated with depression, family breakdown, and dissatisfaction with one's life. Nick Carroll, who was a PhD student when I was at ANU, wrote a paper for the Economic Record called Unemployment and Psychological Wellbeing, and he found that the adverse impact of unemployment on life satisfaction was large and significant. And he also found that past unemployment also had a similar effect, meaning that even once somebody had found their way back into the labour market, the effect of having been unemployed was still there. It was still a scar you could see on their happiness levels. And we do know that the longer someone spends unemployed, the more difficult it is to find their way back into the labour market. If you're an office worker, the computer programs have been updated, and it takes a while to learn the new programs. But there's also, more than that, just a psychological effect of being the loss of self-confidence that can come with being out of the labour market for a long time. As I said before, the United States and European unemployment rates are significantly higher than those here, as is the unemployment duration. The US average jobless period is now 40 weeks. Only 4 years ago it was 17 weeks. So Americans, if they find themselves unemployed, tend to be unemployed for a very long period, 3/4 of a year. In Italy, those who are unemployed, the average duration of unemployment for the unemployed is over a year. So the average unemployed person in Italy is long-term unemployed. As people become detached from the workforce, as I've said, that it makes it harder to re-enter the workforce, and that has an impact not just on the individual but on the society, with lower growth rates, lower economic activity in the future, of course, a limit on public finances because of the lower tax receipts. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics figures from June of last year, Australia had about 96,000 jobless couple families, 210,000 jobless single-parent families. And of those single-parent families looking for work, 23% had been jobless for more than a year. We have a responsibility, I think, to ensure that those people are part of our nation's productivity and our economic and social well-being. This bill abolishes grandfathering to parenting payment single and partnered recipients. Grandfathered parents will have participation requirements when their youngest child turns 6. It'll bring these requirements into line with parents who've claimed parenting payment since July 2006, and treats all parents claiming parenting payment now equally, fairly and consistently. The current rules state that parents have different entitlements according to when they first claimed. So parents who claimed income support after the 1st of July 2006 are eligible for parenting payment until their youngest child turns 8 if the parent is single or 6 if the parent is partnered. Parents who'd been receiving parenting payment before the 1st of July 2006 are therefore grandfathered and may continue to receive payments until their youngest child turns 16. Grandfathered recipients have participation requirements when their youngest child is 7, unlike new recipients who have participation requirements when their youngest child is 6. So the amendment, the bill brings forward the gradual alignment of parenting payment rules announced as part of the Building Australia's Future Workforce package in the 2011-12 budget. It'll create better incentives for parents to return to the workforce and recognises that parents' capacity to undertake work or study increases as children get older. We've got more generous income test provisions for single principal carers on New Start allowance, and those will apply to eligible single parents affected by the earlier cessation of grandfathering. Single parents who are already studying while on parenting payment can continue to receive the pensioner education supplement when they continue on the same course as a New Start recipient. The bill also introduces new liquid asset waiting period, maximum reserve amounts. They're doubled from the current levels, and that strikes, I believe, an appropriate balance between requiring people to rely on their own resources and providing fair and reasonable access to support. It'll allow many people to access income support more quickly and reduce the extent to which they have to draw down their liquid assets before getting income support. And those new thresholds will commence on the 1st of July. Deputy Speaker, grandfathering by its nature is a complicated matter, and there's always going to be tensions between the needs of those for whom the new measures apply and those who are exempt. I don't think economics or social policy or ethics gives us a right way of doing grandfathering, but as the member for Farrer noted before, this is a difficult area of policy. The provisions for grandfathering parenting payments were introduced by the Howard government. What we've done is to make the various entitlements consistent and fair for all parents. It's not a radical change, and I believe it introduces equality across parenting payment recipients. Those who have been claiming since before 2006, those who've claimed after 2006. It's important also to recognise assistance provided by the government to parents in re-entering work. Parents affected by the change will have access to professional career advice, as well as childcare assistance and individually tailored employment services. A particular program that I believe has been important is the JET program, which recognises that access to affordable and accessible childcare is really important for parents who want to get the skills and training to move into the workforce. The JET program provides considerable childcare subsidies for parents on income support, mostly single parents, so they can study or train to develop the skills to get a job. We've seen the number of families using this program increase from over 20,000 in 2007-8 to more than 31,000 in 2010-11. And in this budget we announced another $225 million to be invested in the program over the next 4 years. That'll mean around 130,000 parents across the country will be supported to join the workforce and provide for young families. Deputy Speaker, JET recipients pay a parental co-contribution of $1 per hour of childcare per child, and 50% of the co-contribution can be claimed under the childcare rebate, meaning that JET recipients pay a childcare cost of 50 cents an hour. And those investments will support record numbers of Australian parents, particularly single mothers, to enter the workforce. Deputy Speaker, the changes to the parenting payment grandfathering will reduce the average duration on income support and supports the dignity of work. I commend the bill to the House.